particularly Charvakas or this materialists in India and also in the West, most of these scientists think that there is nothing more than the chemicals in the body. The chemical reaction produces a sort of consciousness in it. It is a result of chemical reaction. So, Charvakas also say, Kidnvadibhyaha madashaktivat chaitanyam upajayate. Kidnvadibhyaha madashaktivat, when you actually chew pan, it has got so many ingredients. By those ingredients, when you chew them, what happens? You get a sort of infatuation. In the same manner, if 5 great elements or the 4 great elements are put together, then what happens? There will be chemical reaction. You go to the first one. First slide. This is an age-old problem I have mentioned. The mind mentioned here is essentially, I have made some clarification there. The mind mentioned here essentially refers to consciousness. With regard to consciousness, there was an objection. The word consciousness is misleading, etc. Just now in the previous, when the previous paper was presented. In fact, I organized a very big conference on consciousness. I had invited all the physicists, just like ECG Sudarshan, Dr. Raja Ramanna, etc. And then the problem was, they said you should not use the word consciousness. It should not be translated as consciousness. On the other hand, you have to mention it as Chaitanya. Always these translations are misleading, particularly when you are mentioning it in English. It loses so much of information. Translation actually makes us lose so much of information. So there were the discussion was like this. Somebody said consciousness, Chaitanya means experience. Another person said Chaitanya means cognition. Another person said it is consciousness. In this, so many interpretations are there. So many a times when we mention it in English, it is very difficult. Particularly, the mind is very loosely used in English, particularly with regard to so many systems of Indian philosophy. That's why I said the mind mentioned here essentially refers to consciousness or soul, or generally referred to as mind performing all the activities of consciousness. Most Western and Eastern theories fall into 3 main groups. Go to the next one. The first group, either East or West, considers that the physical body is made up of 4 or 5 great elements. Due to the chemical reaction that takes place among the great elements, consciousness or mind is produced. This is the view. Even the scientists hold the same view because they don't accept consciousness. Probably now the physicians have come to a level of accepting consciousness in thermodynamics. Formerly it was not there. When ECG Sudarshan came to Melkote and he spoke about consciousness, he was a little bit hesitant to say something, because physicists, if they accept consciousness, then the scientific world would reject them because he is saying something nonsense. So that was the thing. But after the development of thermodynamics and also what is this? Another physics, which you call it, atomic physics or something. Slowly consciousness is being accepted by the scientists also. Then the second group of philosophers considers that mind or consciousness alone is real, and this physical body is just an extension of the reality, namely consciousness or mind. Probably Buddhists belong to this particular group. They say there are merely sensations, and sensations are nothing but the appearances of the temporary consciousness or fleeting consciousness which is changing every moment. So that is the idea. So the physical body is just an appearance according to them. And when there is absolute realization of the reality, the physical body, which is illusory, will automatically disappear. That means ultimately this Buddhism actually results in nihilism. Even the consciousness is not permanent and the sensations are not permanent. Series of sensations are produced and they are also not real, and ultimately there is nothing in this world. So it results in nihilism. Go to the next one. There is one more group which says both physical body and mind are essential. This is mostly Advaita. According to them, Shankaracharya says, Sutaram iteretara adhyasaha, unless you accept a base for superimposition, then what happens? Nothing is there in this world. So he accepted or he posited a permanent consciousness, but at the same time he said all the other things which appear in this particular world are illusory, they don't exist. Further, there are so much of information is given. Because I want to give more information about Ramanuja's philosophy, I will not go into that. Then, totally attributeless, it is abstract, permanent. All the physical bodies and other physical things, being extensions of this original consciousness, are bound to disappear when this consciousness realizes that it is the only reality and all others are its own appearances caused by illusion. That's why he accepted different types of satyas, Paramarthika Satya, Vyavaharika Satya, etc. When the Vyavaharika Satya is accepted, you can accept Bheda. When you accept the Paramarthika Satya, when you go to the fourth state or the Turiya state, which is said to be according to Shankaracharya, all the other things will disappear, as so many things which are seen in the dream disappear as soon as you come to the waking state. So I will not go into those details. Okay, go to the next one. Then the two main streams can be thought of. Physical things exist, consciousness does not exist. Consciousness exists, physical things do not exist. These are the two main streams. Then go to the next one. Sri Ramanujacharya resolves the conflict between matter and mind, having a holistic view about reality. Very interesting thing is, according to Ramanuja, there is no conflict between matter and mind at all. Mind, if it wants to function, or consciousness, if it has to function, it requires a medium. It requires a vehicle. The body or the physical body is the medium of consciousness so that it can function. In this particular place, I want to give more information about certain things. Ramanuja has accepted theory of knowledge in a beautiful manner. Most of you, particularly Westerners, Western scientists or Western philosophers, may be well aware of the theory of representation. Ramanuja gave enormous amount of information with regard to theory of perception, totally refuting the theory of representation. According to Plato, you cannot see the original object at all, because in perception what happens? The image of the object falls on the retina. Then that it will produce certain electrical impulses which will be carried to the brain through the nervous system. Then what happens? The psychologist comes into picture, and he says it will interpret those impulses and give a holistic approach, and ultimately say the object is like this, etc., etc. So according to Plato, what happens? According to Aristotle and Plato also, everything is represented, and you cannot have the direct cognition of any object. So I am seeing the images of so many people sitting here, but I am connected with the image only, not with the persons who are sitting here. So it is not direct cognition. By seeing a photograph, can you say I am seeing the original person here? It's impossible. Unfortunately, what has happened, the MRI, so-called MRI, and also PT scan, etc., are actually devised to present all these things using the theory of representation. You are seeing the shadow of the object, and you can never see the original object at all. Based on that, the MRI and PT scan, etc., are functioning even now, probably on a wrong theory according to me. But according to Ramanuja, what happens? In Yatindra Matadipika, it is beautifully presented. Atma manasa sanyujyate, manaha indriyena, indriyam arthena, tatah pratyaksham. So the consciousness which is in you is a sort of reservoir. It is just like a water in a reservoir. And then if you open one gate, what happens? The water flows through that particular gate, and it flows through different channels. And then through the channel, it approaches the fields and ultimately spreads in that particular field. In that manner, according to Ramanuja, what happens? the consciousness or Dharma Bhuta Jnana, I will mention about that a little bit later. Dharma Bhuta Jnana is stored in you. And if you open the gate in the form of the mind or manas, manas cannot be translated as mind. If you translate it as mind, probably it will lose its importance. So, what is mind exactly? Still, I don't know when I use the word mind from the point of view of the Western sciences. So, this manas is an inner sense organ, and inner sense organ is just like a gate. You open that, and then it should have connection with a particular sense organ. So, through the sense organ, then what happens? The consciousness flows to different objects and takes that particular shape. That's why when I am seeing a particular person or when I am seeing this mic, my consciousness itself is molded in the form of this mic. So, I can see it, I can have direct cognition. If you accept the theory of representation, probably what happens? I am seeing the image of the mic. I am not seeing the original mic at all. I can never see it also. So, in this way what happens? Ramanuja, after resolving the conflict between the mind and matter, very clearly says this consciousness is like this. Not only that, Ramanuja's theory is unique in this particular regard. If at all anybody wants to do research work on consciousness, my feeling is Ramanuja's philosophy is ideal, because it has got some objective representation also, and it has got subjective representation also. According to Ramanuja, the individual soul is the repository of consciousness. Nyaya Vaisheshika philosophy also accepts that. Jnana adhikaranam atma. Atma is Jnana adhikarana, he is the repository of Jnana or consciousness or knowledge. But as far as Atma is concerned, the soul is concerned, its Swarupa or nature is just like, it is totally devoid of consciousness. Whereas in the philosophy of Ramanuja, even the Atma has got consciousness. That's why he says, he uses two words. Sorry. So, when he says in the philosophy of Ramanuja that not only Jnanadhikaranam Atma is also Jnana Swarupa. That's why in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya he says he is Jnana Swarupa and Jnana Gunaka. Jnananandamayastu Atma Sheshohi Paramatmana. He is Jnana Swarupa and Jnana Gunaka. His nature is of the consciousness, and he is also the possessing the quality, namely consciousness. How do you answer? How do you explain this? Ramanuja takes the example of a lamp. Let us say there is a burning candle here. So there is the flame, and there is also the light which emerges from the flame. But flame is the substratum of the light which emerges from that. So light is also a form of fire, and flame is also a form of fire. One can be the substratum and another one can be the substrate. So in this way, one is quality and another one is Swarupa. In this way, he accepts the nature of Jivatma or the individual soul, and this nature of Jivatma is called Pratyak, and another one is called Parag, that is Dharma Bhuta Jnana or attributive consciousness. Attributive consciousness which is in the form of the light emerging from the flame. Flame is the substratum of that light, and which is also in the form of fire. So that is called Pratyak. So in the case of Pratyak, in Shibhashya very clearly he says, Swasmai Swayam Prakashate. It shines forth for itself. The I consciousness. Always I am feeling the I consciousness. Even during the time of sleep, this will not be forgotten. That I consciousness, which is called Alaya Vijnana Dhara, which continues. Otherwise, a person goes to sleep. When he gets up, he has already forgotten about himself. So he cannot say, Sukham aham asvapsam nakinchidim aham avedisham. I slept so well, I didn't understand anything. If he says like that, if he has not understood anything during the sleep, what about the I consciousness? That's why the person who has gone into the sleep, when he gets up, he is the same person. That's why he used the word Sukham aham apsvapsam Nakinchit aham madam avedisham. In that place also he gets this I consciousness. So that is called pratyak swasmai swayam bhasate. It shines forth for itself. And in this I consciousness, there is a quality or there is a property which is called dharma bhuta jnana, just in the form of the light, which is found which is found in the flame actually. So this dharma bhuta jnana is the consciousness which is actually functional consciousness to me, according to me. It goes out, approaches the different objects and takes that particular form, and then we have the direct cognition. According to me, most of the Western theories cannot explain this perfectly, because your experience is you are directly seeing all these people. If you take the theory of representation, then what happens? You are actually seeing the images of all these people, which is correct. My experience very clearly says I am seeing, directly cognizing these things. So from that point of view, I think the concept given by Ramanuja is very interesting and very fruitful, and at the same time we have to develop other theories and also modern gadgets based on the theory of Ramanuja, particularly with regard to perception. P.N. Srinivasachari very beautifully states in his book on philosophy of Vishishtadvaita that these Western theories of perception gives the piecemeal story of perception. I think he is a great physicist who is sitting here. According to physicists, what happens? The eye is reduced to a pinhole camera. Just the image of the object falls on the retina. There ends the story of perception according to the physicist. Then the neuroscientist should come and say certain electrical impulses are produced. Through the nervous system, it is carried to the brain, and something happens, some chemical reaction takes place in the brain. There ends the story of neuroscientist. Then the psychologist comes. So in this way, piecemeal story, okay. In this way, piecemeal story of perception is given in other systems of philosophy, particularly Western systems of philosophy. And Buddhist theories of philosophy also accept this. That's why Buddhists say you can never see the original object. There is no perception as such. On the other hand, you have to infer everything by means of inference. It is only inferential knowledge, it is not perceptual knowledge. In this way, this is a great contribution of Ramanuja, particularly with regard to the resolution of the conflict between mind and matter. And another interesting thing is, according to Ramanuja, mind and matter are not mutually conflicting. Throughout the philosophy, if you see, this mind or consciousness can never function without the medium of a body at all. So, body is a very much necessary thing. Even after death, what happens? If the soul has to travel to other bodies, it will have a linga sharira or a sukshma sharira, which is very subtle. It will have a subtle body. And even when he goes to moksha, then what happens? After taking bath in the Virajanadi, he will get a sharira which is called Shuddha Sattva Sharira or something, which is not mixed with Rajas and Tamas. It is Mishra Sattva here, and there it is Shuddha Sattva. So, that consciousness or the mind cannot be there without the body. Body is an essential thing, but there is no conflict between these two things. On the other hand, they function in such a wonderful manner, in a very systematic manner, even while we are in this physical world and we are in bondage. Even when we are liberated, I think there also there is perfect cohesion between consciousness and the mind. With these words, I thank you. I thank you for giving such a wonderful opportunity. How far I have presented these things perfectly, I don't know. I don't know whether I have lived up to your expectations or not. If there are any questions, you can ask me. As we were introduced, when physics were introduced to us, I came to the conclusion, yes, you can see an image, you can see a particular object because the image of the object falls on your retina. The eye is just like a pinhole camera. There is an inverted image which falls on the retina. That's what that is stated by physicists, if I am right. Then what happens? They will not say. Then you see the object. Suppose a person is unconscious, he is opening his eyes, and the image of the object has fallen on his retina. Can he see? He cannot see, because he doesn't have this consciousness. Then the story has to be further taken by a neuroscientist who says when the image of the object falls on the retina, certain impulses are created which will be carried to the brain through the nervous system. There ends another story. It's a piecemeal story. Then the psychologist should come, and even neuroscientists should come and say there will be certain chemical reactions and certain neurons are fired, etc. At that time you feel you have seen something. And according to Plato, and according to Aristotle, Plato, etc., and also theory of representation, you can never see an object totally. Because if you see a table, you see only 3 legs, not the 4th leg. If you go to the other direction, another angle, then also you see the 4th. But how do you do that? The psychologist says the mind reconstructs everything and puts into a whole thing. Any other question? Yes?
So going beyond mind and body conflict, I mean, like astrophysicists, people like who proposed and now, I mean, kind of accepted this variations of string theory and things like that from in Cambridge, for example, where I come from, seem to increasingly agree with the Indian way of looking at things, the dimensions of the universe, including and also the proportion of dark matter, which we still not even measured scientifically. And what we say is 1/4 is what we can perceive, and all these kind of our philosophy thing. And also, can you say something about that if you can, and also about the mind, consciousness, and the quantum phenomenon, which seems to be again be a converging view between like physicists and Indian philosophy, broadly speaking.
Okay. I don't know much about astrophysics.
Okay.
But anyway, one thing I want to tell you.
Thank you.
These philosophers, particularly Indian philosophers, have got a holistic approach. Science actually starts from the subject, starts from the object and ultimately goes to the subject. According to me, so far scientists have totally neglected the subject. When you are conducting an experiment, they always say there should be an observer. But what is the role of the observer in the observed? You record only the observations, but you will not say anything about the observer. Suppose I want to measure something that is something, let us say, a measurement or something. According to me, it is 3.5. According to you, it is 3.4. And according to another person, it is 3.6. So your teacher will say, take the average and put it as the result. Is it right? So science actually is not very curious or very serious about accuracy. On the other hand, what you do is, okay, take the average and put it, that's what they say. And another interesting thing is, here what happens in philosophy, everything starts from the subject. So how you feel, that is more important.